Oklahoma is the land of second, third, and last chances. Who were the people that made it so? The Red River Institute of History, johnjdwyer.com, me, Gwen Falconer Lippert, and our signature sponsor, Atwood's Stores, present Oklahoma Gold. Together with our Will Rogers Medallion-winning author-historian John J. Dwyer, we'll stitch the golden threads of Oklahoma history. It's Oklahoma Gold. Dignifying our history when we learn about our state's heritage. John J. Dwyer, what's this story?
Well, Gwen, if ever there was an Oklahoma Gold episode with past, present, and future components, this is the one. We're going way back, half a millennium back, to the first great explorer from the great Western Christian civilization that birthed us, yet we are going to see how powerfully that epic past helped form not only present-day Oklahoma, but the sooner state of the near and distant future. This adventure will also be a great example of the opportunity we have in the telling of truthful history, Gwen, the sort where we pursue the treasure trove of truth wherever it leads, regardless of our personal prejudices, emphases, or interests, and we let the chips fall where they might in order to locate that treasure. A big part of today's treasure is none other than Francisco Vasquez de Coronado, the legendary Spanish explorer of the 16th century, the 1500s. In spite of the misleading one-sided smears by many modern historians and political activists against Coronado, the Spaniard and European society of which he was a part, the Western civilization they formed and fueled, and the Christianity that set them apart from so many other cultures of their time, they passed forward the makings of the amazing world that all of us were born into. In many ways, we have made a mess of it, but it's the best chance our children could have had. For if you want to talk about a mess, let's consider the New World continent that Columbus, Cortez, Coronado, and others came to. Before the arrival of Christianity brought by the Spaniards, English, French, Dutch, Portuguese, and others, this hemisphere, the North American continent, was a wild world inhabited by pagans who worshiped gods of every stripe, who tortured, assaulted, and murdered one another, some of whom sacrificed their own children by literal fire to their gods, some of whom ate one another, and whose moral practices otherwise would scandalize us. These aboriginal peoples, the indigenous peoples of this continent, had high infant mortality rates, short life expectancies, and lives that were hard in every conceivable way. Now, I realize such notions cut against the grain of most modern historiography, media, and journalistic prejudices, and now commonly accepted societal tropes, but they are true. The recorded history of the land of Oklahoma, the first heralds of the Christian civilization that, even if imperfectly and frustratingly slowly, brought the greatest freedom and opportunity to the most people, regardless of gender, race, creed, or any other designation in history. It began with the epic treks of Coronado and his Spanish conquistadors and native allies in the early 1540s, nearly 500 years ago. Well, let's set the table for their audacious rides through our land, Oklahoma. They came amidst the historic and sometimes conflicted relationships between the powerful European nations of that time. On the one hand, these nations sought to find land and resources to support themselves, provide opportunities for their people, and financially underwrite their armed forces to protect them from competitors and defend their initiatives. These initiatives involved increasingly capable ships, and the crews to man them, which propelled them to breathtakingly range for the first time across the oceans and land masses of the entire world. On the other hand, these nations knew that only a small percentage of the world's population followed the Christian faith and the Savior and Lord at the head of it, and they, some more than others, felt compelled to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ to the non-Christian peoples living throughout the non-European continents of the world. Thus came to Oklahoma in time Francisco Vasquez de Coronado. So who was he, truly? Well, he was already respected and well known at 27 years of age when he launched his fabled trek across Mexico and the American Southwest. And this peerless Spanish conquistador introduced modern-day Oklahoma and Western civilization to one another a century before the Pilgrims landed on Plymouth Rock. Coronado was the winsome, charismatic, fair-haired governor of the province of New Galicia in New Spain, otherwise known as present-day Mexico. He led his fellow Spanish conquistadors as they rode through wind, sun, barren plain, and Indian country in search of the fabled Cale, Gran Quivira, and Cibola, the seven cities of gold. Natives had told the Spaniards that kingdoms of unimaginable wealth, larger than Seville, the greatest city in Spain, lay north of Mexico. And so Coronado led 336 conquistadors, rugged Spanish adventurers, explorers, and warriors, and a few hundred indigenous allies across the American Southwest. His expedition also included a captured native guide called the Turk and several Catholic priests to help ensure that the search for the seven cities of Cibola was not merely an economic one, but a spiritual one as well. Displaying the cool vision, ingenuity, organizational skills, and leadership that motivated wealthy men to financially back his expedition and other men to follow him through danger, suffering, battle, and not infrequently death, Coronado constantly assessed the unfamiliar terrain of present-day northern Mexico and southwestern United States, deploying groups of men at strategic points for communication, reconnaissance, and mutual protection based on their individual capabilities. He staggered their movements, waiting to advance one company until the natural resources consumed by the previous one had time to replenish themselves. This land, amidst when all of that was happening, Gwen, was not a friendly nor safe place to be in the early to mid-1500s. The conquistadors were confronted on separate occasions by both the Zuni and Pueblo Indians. They defeated both in bloody battles, during one of which Coronado himself was seriously wounded and nearly died. They endured broiling desert temperatures, freezing mountains, dangerous animals, hunger, and thirst. Enemies gave them false directions, which greatly extended their journeys through lands that were so mortally dangerous that every step, every horse's hoofprint, could be their last. So where do Coronado and modern-day Oklahoma intersect, you ask? Well, in a couple of places. They did so nearly 500 years ago, and they're doing so now. And they're going to do so again as we move forward into our future. And we'll explain how all of these are true after our break.
And it started with the seven cities of gold?
That did not even exist, as it turned out. But in the providence of God, it drew this great initiative and adventure and trek that probably wouldn't have happened otherwise.
I can hardly wait to hear. What is the Golden Nugget? This is Oklahoma Gold. Dignifying our history from the stories we hear. From the Oklahomans Volume 1. What a special Oklahoma Gold. John J. Dwyer, the seven cities of gold?
That's right, or as you were saying at one of our breaks, the seven cities of golden nuggets. And before the break, this most recent break, we followed Francisco Coronado and his Spanish conquistadors through the American Southwest. Yeah, 500 years ago, 1540s, and that included Oklahoma. We demonstrate this with an original map, by the way, featured in Volume 1 of our Oklahomans History book set. According to historians Herbert Belton, Edward C. McReynolds, and the great Oklahoman James Castor that both you and I knew, God bless him, they rode north from Mexico, the conquistadors did, across modern-day Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas, then turned north again and traveled up the future 98th Meridian / Chisholm Trail / U.S. Highway 81. The length of the state of Oklahoma near modern-day Duncan, Chickasha, El Reno, Kingfisher, and Enid. In fact, a 1907 newspaper in the southwest Oklahoma town of Temple reported the unearthing in that area of an apparent Spanish headstone that dated back to 1542 during Coronado's famous adventure. Well, after riding through modern-day Kansas, all the way up there where they believed the 7 cities of gold to be, the conquistadors, not finding them, rode southwest through the panhandle of Oklahoma near the modern communities of Tyrone, Hooker, Optima, Guymon, Goodwell, and Texoma. Coronado himself and other members of his party began the written recording of history in what would become our beloved America. They reported traveling amongst mesquite, cactus, and other bushes in present-day Oklahoma. Turkeys, prairie dogs, jackrabbits, antelope, deer, and wild hogs roam the land, they wrote, over the bluegrass and buffalo grass that covers the southern American Great Plains, because taller grasses and their greater root systems cannot endure those scalding, parched climes. The intrepid Coronado actually indeed did find Quivira, such as it was. He actually considered it the best land he found in the present-day southwest and southern Midwest United States. And here are Coronado's own words, speaking to us from across half a millennium. It was well settled, the land itself being very fat and black and being very well watered by the rivulets and springs and rivers. I found prunes like those of Spain and nuts and very good sweet grapes and mulberries. Its residents, he said, were large people of good build, many towering over the Spaniards. Alas, though, only villages of straw huts and fields of corn, beans, and squash comprised Quivira, and Coronado finally conceded that no glittering cities existed where the people ate from golden forks and spoons and the women poured their men drinks from golden pitchers, atop streets of silver and amidst the tinkling of bells that hung from tree branches and blew in the wind. Such was the legend. Still, his journey through the American Southwest accomplished much that he did not plan. He and his men recorded their observations of the natives, land, and creatures they found, and thus began the recorded history of Oklahoma and the Southwest. And they brought the banner of Spain and Western civilization, and by extension, Christ and his church, to Oklahoma. The many intermarriages between and children produced by his fellow Spaniards and the indigenous people of Latin America has produced the scores of millions of Hispanics. Hispanics have flowed to Oklahoma, the land of the second, third, or even last chance in the 21st century. They now comprise 13% of our state's population. Oklahoma has approximately 2,000 Hispanic-owned businesses. They possess about $9 billion in purchasing power here annually. By the 2020s, Hispanic young comprise the majority of students in the Oklahoma City School District. They comprise pluralities as well as majorities in smaller towns farther west and north. Nearly 2/3 of Guymon residents are Hispanic. In those towns we mentioned a moment ago that Coronado and the conquistadors rode back through on the way back from Kansas, nearly all of those have significant, in the panhandle of Oklahoma, Hispanic populations now. Many of these towns and many jobs, homes, and communities around the state would otherwise be largely barren if not for Hispanics. Important jobs across the state, especially in the post-COVID-19 era, would not be filled if for the presence of Hispanics. Their numbers and prominence will grow as their median age range is the low 20s, far younger than other races in the state. And just as God brought waves of Vikings south to unwelcoming Christian Europe in the Middle Ages so that both peoples could grow and grow better, at least for a long time, He has seen fit to bring legions of Hispanics to Oklahoma. I do support laws and the defense of those laws, even if that necessitates walls and other barriers to require only legally approved immigration. But once again, the settled and the newly arrived had the serendipitous opportunity to bless one another and produce a better whole. Francisco Vasquez de Coronado, audacious visionary, courageous soldier, and early American pathfinder, helped leave a far greater legacy for Oklahoma and America than had he discovered those 7 cities of gold.
Now that's Oklahoma gold.